Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Getting Started webinar. My name is Nick, and I'll be doing the presentation with you today. Just like all of our previous webinars, everybody will be on mute, but if you do happen to have any questions at any point during our class, please feel free to go ahead and type that into the questions and answer sections in the Zoom panel. And at the end of the class, I will go through and answer any questions that may have come up. Also, at the end of the class, I will be sending out an email that's going to contain a document that covers everything that we're going to be looking at in today's class. And should you happen to have any questions while going over that document, again, please don't hesitate. You can reach out to our support department and they will be happy to help you out. Again, today's class is on getting started. So what we're going to be doing in today's class is we're basically be going over some detailed information about drawing and editing walls in Envisioneer. We're going to be taking a look at, again, how to get ready to draw in Envisioneer, and then we're going to be looking at actually drawing in our walls using Envisioneer. So first, let's talk about getting ready to draw. Now, when you first start Envisioneer, you're going to get the ability to choose an existing file that you've already started, or if you're just starting for the very first time, you're going to be able to actually choose a template. Now, we ship with a predefined list of templates, and as you can see on my screen here, we have these available to you to choose from. Now, we're going to use just the standard home construction, which is going to be in feet and inches, but you can choose any one of the different options in here, again, depending on what it is that you're trying to create. We have the standard home construction in both metric and in imperial. And then we have steel frame construction, pole barn construction. We have light commercial, log homes, slab on grade. We have an estimating template as well, which is geared more for estimators. The main difference with this one is the walls will be on with the walls will have a solid fill turned on by default. So you'll see all the walls being drawn with a solid fill color to them. And then we have a couple of presentation drawing formats as well. And again, these also show walls in a in a solid hatch pattern as well. But again, we're just going to use the standard home construction, and we're just going to say create. And all this really does is it just creates a new drawing for you based off of that template. And that template has different settings applied to it. Now, one of those settings is your building locations, and that's what we're going to be taking a look at right now. So when you're starting a new drawing, Envisioneer offers many options for customizing your interface in the way that you draw. There are also settings that are specific to the current project, and that will determine how the model will be built. So before drawing walls, you should select the precision you want for your measurements. You should also set up your building location so that each element you insert is placed at the correct elevation within your model. There are also several drawing aid tools available to help you control your cursor behavior and the way in which your elements are inserted and drawn, such as grid, object snap, ortho, and collision. And these will all be visible down here in the bottom right-hand corner. I'm just trying to get rid of, there we go, there, gone now, perfect. So what we want to do is we're going to go up and we're going to take a look at our building locations. Now, the most important model related settings are going to be your building locations. Each building location represents a specific level or story in your design, such as the foundation or the ground floor. When you insert an element, it is inserted on that current building location. The building location settings determine the height at which the elements are inserted and the height of the walls that are going to be on that level. To activate or to access your building locations, you can do this in one of two ways. If you're comfortable using the menus, you're going to go up to and you're going to select under settings, you can select building locations. If you like to use buttons, down in the lower left-hand corner, you will see this little picture of a house. And when you click on that, it will also activate the building locations dialog. So either option will work. It all depends on what you're most comfortable using. Now that we have the building locations dialog open, we're going to take a look at what these options control. So the first thing you're going to see is the number option. This is just a numeric number field that you can type in and add in however you want your locations to be numbered. You can add up to 999 different locations in Envisioneer, and you can number them in any way that you want. If you want to do just 1, 2, 3 like we have by default, you can do that. If you like to do 100, 200, 300, you can again change the numbering sequence to be however you want that to be displayed. Next is the name. And again, this is just an alphanumeric field. You can double click in it, change the name of whatever location you want, and you can type in exactly the terminology that you want for your locations. Next, we're going to be getting into some of the actual controls of our building locations. And these controls allow us to adjust the actual measurements. Now, the first option we're going to see here is our floor level. Now, I like to use the edit location dialog here just to give us a graphical representation of what this controls. This just helps make it easier to see and understand what we're doing here. So when we say that our floor level is sitting at 1 foot 5.5 inches, we are referring to this as from the terrain. Now, in our case here, terrain is always 0. That is what we're drawing from. That ground level is 0. So when we say we're 1 foot 5.5 inches above that, we're saying that our floor level is going to sit 1 foot 5.5 inches above that terrain line. That's going to include whatever the thickness of my floor is, plus whatever I have exposed of a foundation wall. And if you take a look at our foundation, we can see that the wall height is 8 feet, but only 7 foot 6 inches of it is below 0. So that means 6 inches is exposed. So this 1 foot 5.5 inches is including 6 inches of foundation wall, plus the thickness of my floor and my sill, as well as the thickness of my floor sheathing. That is where that 1 foot 5.5 inches is coming from. Everything else on that is now going to be measured off of the top of your framed floor. So my head heights, my ceiling heights, and my wall heights are again all measured off the top of framed floor. So that's where you're going to see your 6'8", your 8 foot, and your 8 foot 1 1/8. Again, these are just numeric fields. You can double click in these and you can adjust them to make them whatever values you want. If you click the edit option like I did here, you can make those adjustments here and they will update in this dialog for you as well. And again, these are just the heights that you're going to see above that location. New to version 17, you're going to see a new 2D cut height, and you're going to see a couple of different numbers in here. This is the height above the level that you're cutting from when you're looking at it in a 2D plan view. So when we are looking at our plan view and we want to show certain elements as being for our floor plans, this is the height that we're setting that up at. And you can, again, control this. You can make this whatever height you want. Typically about 4 feet is the typical height. And that should cut through any openings you have. So windows and doors, you will see those windows and doors in the plan views. And then anything above that would be a dotted line like a ceiling. So again, you can edit that field by just double clicking in it. And we're just going to click cancel on this edit box. We're going to go back into the building locations. And the last option is our framing options. Now, the framing options, what these control are the way that your walls are going to be framed. Now, depending on the version you have, you may have different controls in here. If you're using Building Essentials and Construction Suite, you will have all of the options that you see on my screen right now. If you're using anything other than Building Essentials or Construction Suite, this dialog may be limited in what you can edit and see. But basically what this is allowing us to do is it's allowing us to control how we want our load-bearing span tables, our non-load-bearing span tables, our intersections, and our infills to be framed. So we can control exactly what members are going to be used where, what the spacing is going to be, how many headers we're going to be using, how many jack and king studs are going to be needed. All of that will be determined based off of these framing options. You can go through and edit each one of these individually. So if you want to adjust the head sill, if you want to adjust the load-bearing span table, you can go through and take a look at all the different options in here. And just by double clicking on it, it will open up your different span tables. These just control, again, whatever the span opening size is, it's going to use a specific header configuration. You can, again, adjust to use something a little bit larger. So if you want it to be a 3-ply span table, then you can adjust accordingly. And if you double click, or if you click on the browse button over on the side here, it's going to open up the head sill jamb library. And this is what actually controls what's going to be used for your framing. So in here, we can see all the different head sill jamb library configurations. And if you double click on it, it will bring up the head sill jamb configuration. Over on the right-hand side will be a preview. I like to right-click in the preview and turn on a rendered outline view. I find it a little bit easier to distinguish what is what because you're going to see the actual lines of the elements or the members that are being used. But here we can see that since we're using a 2x10 for our header, we're going to have a double jack and a double king on both the left and the right side. That's just to help carry the load of that header. We're also doubling up our sill for our window or our opening. We're also going to have an upper and lower cripple region. Now, Envisioneer is intelligent in the fact that it knows if it's going to be a window, it's going to need a lower cripple region and a double sill. If it is a door, it knows that it no longer needs that sill or that lower cripple region. So it will automatically remove those framing members for you. So you don't have to have a separate configuration for doors and windows. One configuration for both types of openings. You can go through and take a look at these at your own pace. So you can go through and take a look at what's being used. You can adjust how the members are being inserted, adjust what type of members are being used. Typically, you're going to want the members to associate back to the wall that you're drawing with. So if you're drawing with a 2x4 wall, it's going to use a 2x4 member. If you're drawing with a 2x6 wall, it's going to use a 2x6 member. So that's why it's referring to wall properties. But in some cases, like in a header situation, you're going to want a specific member to be used for that part of the wall. So here I want to use a 2x10 header for my openings. So instead of saying wall properties, it's now saying member library. And I'm able to choose the exact member that I want. So instead of using a 2x6 or a 2x4 based on the wall properties, I'm telling it, I want you to be a 2x10, hence the name 3-ply 2x10 header. So you can control exactly what members you want. You can change their rotations, again, to accommodate exactly how you want your configurations to look. I'm not going to make any changes here, so I'm just going to cancel out of all these dialogues here. And we're just going to go into the infill configuration. So with the infill configuration, this is how your wall is going to be framed out. You're going to be able to specify, again, the top plates, very top plates, your bottom plates. If you have a wall that's going to need to be blocked, you can set up your infills to, again, match exactly what you want. And if you double click on that, again, you're able to see how that wall is being framed out. Our infill properties determine our spacing. So again, we're at 16 inches on center. We have our bottom plate, which is using the wall properties. Our studs, again, are using the wall properties. Our blocking is also using our wall properties. So again, whatever the size of the wall is we're drawing with, that's what I want my studs to be. If I was drawing a wall that was going to be sitting on a concrete floor, then I would actually need to use a different infill configuration that controls based off of the type of bottom plate I want to be using. So in this particular case, I don't want my bottom plate to use the wall properties. I want that bottom plate to be pressure treated. So I have an infill configuration exactly for that use. So it's the exact same infill. The only difference is it's now using a 2x6 pressure treated bottom plate. So you will have to have an understanding of when you're drawing your walls, before you start drawing your walls, what the wall sizes are going to be. So if I know I'm drawing with 2x4 walls, then I would want to make sure I set my infill to use a 2x4 treated bottom plate. If I know it's going to be 2x6, then obviously I would use the 2x6 pressure treated bottom plate. I'm just going to click cancel. I'm not going to make any changes there. And then you can also control how you want your framing rule to start. So where do you want your framing to start from? From the bottom left of your screen to the bottom right of your screen. You can again use that to again start your framing. Just going to click cancel on there. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to click on the add location option. Now, when you click on the add location option, a dialog box will appear that will help you calculate the heights of the new location based on the grade of the location currently highlighted in your building locations dialog box. We're going to accept that default of calculate from existing location, and we're just going to say OK. This will bring up the location calculator. And in this location calculator, we're able to now control how we want this location to be created. So at the top of the dialog, you can specify a name for your new location. And we're going to set this up to adjust to certain heights. So I'm going to say I want this to be 3rd floor. So that's going to be the new name for this location. Once I specify that, I want to start and go through some of the options that are available to us. So here we can see our wall heights, our ceiling heights, and our head heights. It's adopted the same settings that we saw on the ground floor, so we're going to keep those. That's going to be the same heights that we want for our 3rd floor. What I do want to adjust is the floor level calculator. So I want 3/4 inch sheathing, and I want this to be a 2x10 construction. So this is going to be 9.5 inch of structural. So that's going to be my actual choice size. I'm building this on top of a wall, so I don't need to have a sill plate, so I can leave that set to 0. The only other thing I want to adjust is, what am I calculating this from? Well, this is the 3rd floor. I don't want to calculate it from the ground floor. So if you watch the values here, you're going to see them adjust based off of the level that we choose. So right now we're seeing top of wall from grade is at 18 foot 6 inches. And we're going to change that to be to 2nd floor. And by doing that, we can see it's automatically calculating everything for us. It's saying, oh, wait a second, we're no longer calculating from the ground floor. This is now being calculated from 2nd floor. So that value is going to be adjusted for you automatically. And then all you have to do is simply say OK to that, and it's now creating a brand new 3rd floor in your building locations dialog box. The green check mark that you see in the far left-hand side of that dialog just lets you know what your current location is. So when the dialog box is open, you can see very quickly, okay, green checkbox means that's the current location. And even down in the lower left-hand corner, you can see the current location will always be displayed here. So you can see that that is the ground floor. We're just going to say OK to that, and that now sets up our new our new building locations. And actually, if I go into that, we do want to make sure that we set up our framing options. I did forget to set those up. So we do want to make sure that our framing options are also defined for our new location. So we're just going to double click and set all of this up to, again, just match our ground floor option. So this is going to be 16 inches on center with a double top plate, and it's also going to be blocked. I'm going to say OK. So now everything is the exact same all the way through our design. And then we're going to say OK. So next, I want to take a look at drawing aids. So below the drawing area, there is a set of drawing aids that can help you insert elements easily and accurately. You can turn each of these on and off by just clicking on them. Now, the first option we see here is solid fill. Now, solid fill will allow you to display all of your walls with a solid fill applied to them. So you can simply toggle that on and off by just simply clicking on it. And you can do that by, again, just simply pressing the button itself, and it will turn it on and off. I typically have mine turned off, so it's not enabled on my screen. The next is Snap Track. Now, this is a tool that I do like to have turned on. This helps you draw objects at specific angles, or positions relative to other objects. When snap tracking is turned on, a temporary alignment path will appear on your screen based on the object snaps of points that you're referencing. So again, I like to use this to help me recognize different areas of my drawing. So if I want to line something up, I will keep a snap track turned on. Grid snap, which is disabled on my screen, snaps your pointer to the invisible grid when inserting elements. So the grid that we see on our screen, if you had grid snap turned on, it would snap to those grid points for you automatically. Object snap, again, is an option that I usually always have turned on. This snaps elements, this allows you to snap to elements that you are currently inserting to existing elements in your actual drawings. You will actually see actual points show up where you can snap to. So object snap should probably always be turned on. Next is angle snap. Now I'm going to talk about angle snap and ortho at the same time because they work hand in hand. Now, angle snap, when you click on it, will always disable ortho. You cannot have angle snap and ortho turned on at the same time. It's either one or the other or none. You cannot have both. Angle snap will allow you to snap to set angles. And these angles can be set up in your settings to be whatever angle you want. By default, we have ours set to 15-degree increments, so it would snap to every 15-degree increments, so 15, 30, 45, and so on. If you know you're not going to be drawing with angles, then you're going to want to make sure ortho is turned on. Ortho will only allow you to draw in 90-degree angles. So this way you're ensuring your walls are always straight when drawing. Then we have the grid option, and by default, this is turned on. This is just a visual grid that helps you have actual points that you can reference, and you get an idea of where things are lined up within the grid space itself. You can toggle this on and off again by just simply clicking on the button, and it will turn off the grid, or turning it back on by simply selecting it. And then the last option in this list is collision. Again, this is going to be on by default, and I do recommend always having it turned on. Collision prevents you from adding objects inside of other objects where they should not be. Especially handy when you are adding in cabinetry or furniture, it will prevent you from placing a cabinet inside of a wall or placing your furniture inside of a wall where it should not be. As long as the object that you're inserting has a behavior set with a snap point set to the back, it will automatically flip that element around so that the back of the element snaps up against the wall. Now, there are going to be situations when you're drawing an Envisioneer where collision will prevent you from inserting something exactly where you want it to be. Case in point will be cabinets in tight corners, plumbing fixtures like a bathtub into a bathroom where it's going to be the exact size of the opening. So a 5-foot tub into a 5-foot bathroom, you may have some problems trying to get that bathtub in there. Or trying to place stairs within 2 walls. Again, collision will prevent that from happening. So what you need to do there is simply uncheck collision to turn it off, and then place the object where you want it, rotate it around, snap it to the corner where you want it to be, but I do always recommend turning collision back on. So what we're going to do now is we're going to start drawing some walls in Envisioneer. So there are different ways to create walls in Envisioneer depending on your design style. You can draw them to exact distances, or you can simply pick points while watching the watching the on-screen dimensions. You can also copy existing walls to create new ones. Whether your design style is highly precise or more freeform, Envisioneer is a versatile tool that will work with you. So the first thing we're going to be looking at is drawing walls to exact dimensions. So when you know the exact dimensions that you want your perimeter walls to have, you can use the Walls by Baseline tool. This option allows you to type in precise lengths for each wall. And as you draw your wall segments, a self-closing line diagram is going to be formed. When you have finished specifying your wall lengths, you are then prompted to specify an offset method for those walls relative to the baseline that you drew. You can offset them from the outer face of the veneer, the outer face of the wall core or stud, or from the inner face of the wall. So let's put this into practice. So let's go up and select our walls. I'm going to show you both options to start with, so you have an idea of how you can do this. If you like to use the menus, underneath Insert, you will see Walls, and then you will see the flyout walls by baseline. If you like to use the buttons, under the Building tab, you will see the Walls button, and then a little drop-down arrow beside Walls, and you can select Walls by baseline. The catalog on the right-hand side will now be populated with all the different wall types available to you. And we're just going to go up and we're going to select the 2x6 brick veneer wall. And then we're going to bring our mouse into our drawing area. And I'm just going to go into the lower left-hand corner and I'm going to left click once. So right now, what I've done is I've started my first point. This is where I'm starting my wall from. I can move my mouse in any direction, left, right, up, or down, and you're going to see a line show up. I also want you to pay attention to the commander in the bottom left. Wherever I move my cursor, I can see a distance, which is highlighted in blue, and a direction. I want to move my mouse to the right, which is going in the 0 direction. Now, the blue distance dialog is highlighted. What this tells me is I can actually type in, and it will automatically override whatever is in that highlighted blue distance area. So if I type in 25 and I push the foot sign, it's going to make that wall 25 feet. Now, what I see a lot of people do here, and I'd like to point this out, is right now, my hand is nowhere near my mouse. I moved my mouse to the right, and then I left the mouse exactly where it was on the mouse pad. I typed in my distance, and I pressed enter. If I touch that mouse, it's going to update that change. So I see people do this quite a bit. They type in the distance, then touch the mouse, and then the distance they typed in is gone. It's been removed because you've moved the mouse, and now it's trying to find a new distance. So again, move the mouse the direction you want, type in the distance, and then press enter. That has now added that first wall in at 25 feet. I'm now going to move my mouse again in the up direction. So we're now going in the 90-degree direction. And then again, I want you to notice that the distance is still highlighted in blue. And all I have to do now is, again, I'm not touching the mouse. I type in 10 feet and I press enter. You do have to put the foot sign in. If you don't put the foot sign in, it's going to assume inches. So you will now have a 10-inch wall instead of a 10-foot wall. I'm going to move my mouse back to the right, again, in the 0 direction. And I want you to notice the polyline. So right now it's referencing back to the first point. Don't get hung up on the fact that the lines are crossing each other. That is not going to cause any issues at this point. We're going to move our mouse to the right. We're going to take our hand off of the mouse. We're going to type in 5 feet. And we're going to press enter. That new wall is now added in. We're going to move our mouse upwards again in a 90-degree direction, and we're going to type in 20 feet, enter, and then we're going to move our mouse all the way to the left in the 180-degree direction. Now, if you remember, I talked about snap tracking earlier. Now, maybe I wasn't paying attention to the map, and I don't know how far I need to move to the left. So what I can do is I can actually use my snap tracking, and I can say, well, I want it to line up with this point right here. So I can move my mouse down to this point, and as soon as I move it to that point, it's going to automatically snap to that point. Now I'm really close to that line, so it might be hard to see, but there is a gray line that shows up. That is the actual snap point reference line or snap track line that we want to use. So I can see that circle with an X. That lets me know that I am now in line. I can just simply left click once to add that in. I do not need to snap back to the first point. Since this is a self-enclosed polyline, it's always going to reference back to the first point. So all I have to do now is right click, and this will bring up my context menu. Now in this context menu, there are 3 commands. There is a finish command, a cancel command, and a step back command. So if at any point during the process of adding in my dimensions, I made a mistake, I don't need to cancel and start over. I can right click and I can select step back, and it will allow me to step all the way back to the very first point. If I haven't made any mistakes, I can simply select finish. This will bring up the walls by baseline dialog box. And what this dialog box is essentially saying is the lines or the dimensions that we added in, what were those referencing? Was that the outer face of the veneer? Was that the outer face of the wall core stud? Or was that the inner face of the wall core stud? Then we have some offset options if we want to take advantage of those. Do we want to offset that line towards the inside or outside any kind of a set distance? In this case, no, we don't want to take advantage of an offset, and we want that to be measured to our veneer. So this is to the outside of the brick. So we're going to say outer veneer, no to the offset. So we're going to leave it at 0, and we're going to say OK. And what that does is it just creates that wall for us. And when we click on it, we can see all of the dimensions that we typed in. So there's the 25 foot, there's the 10 foot, the 5 foot, the 20 foot, and again, it goes back to the 30 foot. So all of that is now set up based on the wall by baseline option that we used. So now what we're going to do is we're going to be looking at drawing walls with the point and click method. So if you prefer a more free-form design approach, or if you want to draw your interior walls, you are always going to use the Walls tool. Once you've selected this tool, all you have to do is point and click with your mouse to define the start and the end point of each wall. You're going to see on-screen dimensions display that show you the lengths of the walls as you draw them, and you will also have the option of using the commander to specify an exact length and angle if necessary for the wall you're inserting. Walls drawn with this tool are going to be drawn based on the center of the wall. So we're going to go up, and again, we're going to use, again, under Insert, Walls, you can select Walls, or if you like to use the buttons under the Building tab, use the drop-down and select Walls. In the Catalog panel on the right-hand side, select the wall type that you want. I want to use an interior wall here, so I'm going to grab this 2x6 interior wall, and I'm going to bring my mouse into the drawing area. Now, I want to snap this wall to an actual point. Now, I can zoom in and out very easily in Envisioneer. It really depends on what tools you want to use. Down in the lower right-hand corner here, you're going to see our zoom and navigate controls. These will allow you to zoom in and zoom out. So you can use the zoom in, zoom out controls. So the magnifying glasses here with the plus sign will zoom in, and then you have the zoom out. We also have a zoom real time, a zoom window. So if I want to zoom around a set area, I can zoom around it, and I can also go zoom previous, which will bring us back to the original zoom point, or I can just simply click on the zoom to fit, and it will try to match up the view based off of the terrain size. Those are using the actual controls. I like to use the flywheel on my mouse. Now, this zooming technique is not for everybody, but if you like to use this tool, I like to show it off so that people know about it. The flywheel on your mouse will also act as a zoom tool. So wherever your cursor is, it will zoom in and out from that point. So if I want to zoom in on this corner, I just simply move my mouse to the corner, and then I push the flywheel, I scroll the flywheel forward, and it will zoom in to that point. If I pull the flywheel back or scroll back on the flywheel, it will zoom out from that point. So depending on, again, where you have your cursor, you can zoom in and out very quickly just using that flywheel. So I like to zoom in on a point, and I'm going to say I want to make sure I'm snapping to the center of that wall. So I'm going to zoom right in and click on that corner. And then I'm going to zoom out. I'm going to move my mouse over, and I'm going to say, well, I want to make sure I snap to the center of this wall. I'm going to see that circle with an X, and I left click once. So I left click to start my point. I move my mouse in the direction I want that wall to go, and then I snap it to the core of the adjacent wall to create my new interior wall. That creates our first wall. Now we're going to be using the walls drawing walls using the insertion offset option. So now we're going to draw some walls using that insertion offset option, which lets you start a wall a specified distance away from the endpoint of an existing wall. To do this, I still have the walls command active. So all I'm going to do now is right click, and I'm going to select the enter insertion offset option. I'm now going to type in a distance. So how far do we want to offset this wall? And I want that to be 6 feet. I'm then going to say OK. I'm then going to position my mouse into my drawing area. So we're going to move the cursor along that interior wall that we just drew, and a 6-foot dimension will appear from either side, depending on which corner your cursor is closer to. You can move your cursor to any wall, and it will show you the 6-foot dimension as well. So as soon as you bring that in, you're going to see that 6-foot dimension show up from any wall in your design. Once we have specified exactly where we want that wall to go, we're just going to select our point and we're going to drop it in. So I'm just going to move that in, and I want you to notice where my cursor is and where the 6-foot dimension is. It does not matter where my cursor is, it's always going to insert it 6 feet away from that point. We're going to right click once to place that in. And we're now going to see that wall show up exactly 6 feet away from that point. So now that's going to be set up at 6 feet away, and you can move this wall and drop it in wherever you want. I'm just going to add that wall in up there. So now we have our new wall added in, and we can see that it's exactly 6 feet away. What we're going to do now is we're going to look at drawing a wall or creating a wall using the copy option. So walls can also be copied to create new walls. You can click and drag the copy to a new position, or you can use the commander to specify a precise move distance and a direction. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to select a new wall. We're going to select this wall right here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to right click and we're going to say duplicate. We're then going to select a point. So there's a couple of ways that we can do this. I can simply click on that point and I can move this up, and I can use the commander now to type in a new distance. So I can say, I want that to go up, and we're just going to say 10 feet. We say 10 feet, and we're going to hit enter. And it's going to move that wall up to be exactly 10 feet away from the center line of that wall. Now I can go in and adjust it. I can use my commander here to, again, adjust exactly, or sorry, not my commander, my dynamic dimensions to adjust exactly where I want that wall to sit. So if I want this to be exactly, let's say it needs to be 8 feet, I can type in 8 feet in here, and it's going to move that wall down to be exactly 8 feet. You can also duplicate walls, and you don't need to type in a distance. So I can simply go in and say duplicate. I can left click and hold my mouse button over that. And as soon as I move it up and I let it go, it's going to add in that new wall for us. Again, I can select that wall. And what I want to point out here is when you use the dynamic dimensions, whatever wall you have selected, that is going to be the wall that moves to accommodate any change in the dimension that you make. So we've already set this wall to be exactly 8 feet away from this interior wall. So that wall's set. So I don't want to adjust this value here. I want to select this wall and then adjust this value. And I want this wall to be 5 feet. And when I say OK, it's now going to make that wall exactly 5 feet away. This wall stays at 8 feet away. So depending on the wall that you want to move, that is the wall that you want to have selected to, again, make sure that that is the wall that moves to make that adjustment. So that covers everything that I wanted to go over in today's class. So I'm going to go over a quick review. I did see some questions come in, so I will go through those questions. So again, if you do have any questions, now is the time to go ahead and type those into the questions and answer section, and I will do my best to answer those for you. So just a quick review, before starting a design, it is important to set up your building locations and to prepare your drawing environment. Once that is done, you can begin drawing your walls and adding elements to your design. Just some points to remember here. Before drawing walls, make sure you define your building locations. A number of different drawing aids are available to help you draw, insert, and edit your elements easily and accurately in Envisioneer. You're going to always want to use the Walls by Baseline tool to create an exterior wall layout with precise dimensions. And you're always going to use the Walls tool to freeform your design or when you're drawing in any interior walls. You're going to use the insertion offset and the duplicate tools to accurately add walls to your model using existing walls or existing points within your plan. So let's take a look at the questions that we had come in. The first question is, I use 2 locations at the same level when wall heights change. Is there a better approach? I'm not sure I understand. So I use 2 locations at the same level when wall heights change. Is there a better approach? If it's the same wall type, but the walls change levels in the same location, then you can just adjust the wall heights of the walls. You don't need a separate location for that. If you are creating 2 different wall types for like a stepped wall or stepped foundations, you have a foundation wall that's poured concrete, and then on top of that, you're going to have a framed wall. That would require a separate location, but I don't see why you would need 2 locations for the same type of wall with just differing heights. Those walls can be selected and edited differently. Let me know if that is the answer to your question there. I'm not sure I'm understanding that one exactly. The second question is, was that 6-foot wall offset to the center or stud edge? That 6-foot dimension is actually going to be to the edge of the surface itself. So if we take a look here, we can see that it's going from edge to edge of surface. We can define that. So underneath settings and document settings and building aids, sorry, I may be in the wrong spot here. Cancel, settings, program settings, drawing aids, building aids, here we go. So this one here is going to show you, it's going to go to the surface, or you can have it set to the core, depending on how you want that to be displayed. And right now, ours by default is set to the outer surface. So that's where we're going to be seeing that dimensions too. So again, I'm just going to pause here for a moment to see if anybody has any other questions or any follow-up questions in regards to what we've covered in today's class. And like I mentioned, I will be sending out an email at the conclusion of our class, and it's just going to have the PDF document that we've used in today's class. So if you want to try this out on your own and follow along using that document, you can do that. And if you have any questions while going over that document, again, don't hesitate. You can reach out to our support department. They will be happy to help you out with any questions you might have. All right, perfect. Well, there doesn't appear to be any other questions. So I do want to thank everybody for attending today. I do look forward to speaking with you all again very soon. So thank you very much, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your day.